Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are strapping in for a trip back.
Back to the 1970s, we're looking at a moment when pop psychology really hit the big time. And with this huge promise, we're tackling that massive bestseller, I'm Okay, You're Okay, by Dr. Thomas A. Harris.
Oh, yeah, that book was absolutely monumental. Millions of copies sold, sure. But it did more than that. It really popularized transactional analysis, TA. That's the core theory. So our mission today, it's really to distill the key ideas of TA. We're talking ego states, the four life positions, and show you how this framework basically says your deepest beliefs, about your own worth. They were formed super early, like before you could even tie your shoes. But importantly, how Harris argued you can consciously choose to, well, rewrite that foundation today.
Right. And I think we really have to start with the vibe of that era.
Uh,
The sources we looked at really highlight this. Back in the 60s, the 70s, these big self-help books, they weren't just aiming for like small tweaks in your life. No, they were going for global change. They were literally saying the ideas inside could, quote, save the world. Yes, it sounds kind of dramatic now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But the stakes felt incredibly real then. You had the Vietnam War, huge civil unrest, the constant threat of nuclear war. It was a genuinely tense, almost apocalyptic mood. And Harris's core idea spoke directly to that. He basically said, look, the world's problems, war, conflict, mistrust, they're essentially individual problems writ large. So if individuals can change their inner workings, their internal operating system, well, then the whole world could change. That's a pretty huge philosophical jump for a self-help book.
Definitely. And to really get Harris's blockbuster, we need to acknowledge the person who came before him, right? Dr. Eric Bernet, the creator of TA. His book, Games People Play, was already a massive hit a couple of years earlier.
Exactly. Byrne built the intellectual scaffolding.
Yeah.
His work was basically this field guide to how we interact. He laid out all these games people play, those predictable ways we act with each other, often with a plausible cover story hiding some deeper unconscious motive. Harris took that really complex foundation and, well, he made it understandable for pretty much everyone. That's what shone him.
Okay.
It came into the stratosphere, made it part of the culture.
What's really interesting, though, looking back at the source material, is how they describe Harris's book itself. It gets labeled pop psychology, sure, but the descriptions keep calling it brainy and challenging. This wasn't like a light beach read.
Oh, not at all. Not even close. He wasn't dumbing things down. The sources say he expected his reader to be worldly, energetic, curious, and literate. Ah, I mean, the book is packed with these deep discussions. Free will, morality, stuff like that. And he's quoting Whitman, Plato, Freud, Bertrand Russell, just dropping these names left and right. He mentioned something like Sinclair Lewis's Babbitt and just assumed you know it. No explanation. So yeah, it demanded real intellectual engagement. It says a lot about who was reading self-help back then.
Okay, that really sets the stage perfectly for digging into the theory itself. Let's get into that core framework, the inner committee, the ego states. This is where TA becomes this functional tool, right?
Yeah.
Analyzing how we interact through these three sort of internal personalities.
Exactly. TA is fundamentally about social interaction,
Yeah.
but it's grounded in psychoanalysis.
Hmm.
The core idea is that every single one of us operates from three distinct ego states.
Hmm.
These states influence how we think, how we feel, how we behave, basically moment to moment. There's like this committee inside your head constantly debating, influencing decisions.
Okay, let's meet the committee members. First one, the parent.
Right. The parent. Think of it as this huge database, like a tape recorder, running from early childhood. It's made up of all the rules, the attitudes, the tone of voice,
Hmm.
all the shoulds and shouldn'ts you recorded from your parents, teachers, authority figures, external stuff.
The parent sounds a bit like that inner critic, maybe, setting all those high standards. Is it all negative? Or is there useful stuff in there too?
That's a really important point. It's not just critical, that's key.
Hmm.
TA talks about the nurturing parent aspect too, the supportive, caring, protective voice we internalized. But yeah, it absolutely holds the critical parent, that voice of judgment, prejudice, maybe punishment. So when you hear that internal voice saying, you have to finish everything on your plate, or always be wary of strangers, well, that's likely the parent state running. It's your pre-programmed moral code, in a way.
Okay, got it. Next up, the emotional center, the child.
You do. The child state. This is formed by your feelings about early experiences and your reactions to them. It holds all the raw, uncensored emotional data from your first few years. We're talking fear, joy, sadness, anger, curiosity, creativity, all that primal stuff. This state is really a basic instincts, vulnerability. that felt sense of being small.
And then the third one, the sort of negotiator, the rational one.
The adult. The adult, yep. Think of the adult as the data processor, the reality checker. It's focused logically, objectively on what's happening right now in the current environment, like the captain on the bridge. Ideally, it looks at the current facts, the data, what's actually happening, and it tries to ignore the shouting from the past, the parent, or the panic down below, the child. Just objective assessment.
So basically, every single thing we do or decide, whether it's an impulse buy, snapping at someone, or calmly figuring out a problem, it's the result of these three states interacting, sometimes clashing. And the goal of TA is to get the adult really strong and clear, contamination-free, as they say.
Exactly. But here's the kicker. The real challenge, it may be the root of a lot of our issues, according to TA. Those conclusions the child state makes, recorded way back, before you were, say, 7, they're taken as absolute truth. Why? Because your adult state, the part that tests reality, that thinks logically it just wasn't fully developed yet. So we record all those parental messages, all those intense emotional reactions without any filter, without any critical analysis. And that becomes the bedrock, the foundation for our whole life script.
Wow. So if, like, a parent always implied, you're only okay if you achieve things, the child just records that. It's fundamental truth about worthiness. That early, unedited, emotional fact seems like the perfect lead-in to the next big concept then. The life positions.
Precisely. The life positions are these core, often unconscious beliefs we hold about our own basic worth. Are we okay or not okay? And about others' worth, are they okay or not okay? And T argues these positions get locked in, usually unconsciously, by the time those child tapes are mostly full, around age 7. They then become the deep-seated justification for pretty much all our behavior.
Okay, there are 4 of them, and they sound really powerful in shaping how we see everything. Let's start with the one Harris said is most common.
Right. That would be, I'm not okay, you're okay. This is often described as the depressive position, maybe masochistic sometimes. It's marked by seeing yourself negatively, feeling inferior, maybe powerless, while seeing others as positive, competent, powerful. So if something good happens to someone in this position, they might think it's just luck, or because the other person, the okay person, was being kind. They don't feel they deserve it intrinsically.
Gosh, that sounds exhausting. Just constantly feeling fundamentally flawed, waiting for things to go wrong because you feel you don't really deserve good things.
Harris basically suggested this is almost the default human condition, stemming from those early experiences of being small and dependent on big, powerful adults. Now, let's flip it, the inverse. I'm okay. You're not okay.
Okay, this sounds like the opposite problem. Maybe arrogant, critical.
That's the territory, yeah. This position often comes from experiences of neglect, maybe abuse, or constant harsh criticism in childhood. Eventually, the person might shut down their need for others, become really defensively self-reliant. They tend to view other people as flawed, inferior, maybe untrustworthy. The source material even calls it a downtrodden frog mentality that gets projected outward. It often leads to critical, aggressive, or maybe even paranoid behavior, surviving by keeping others down or away.
Okay, so what if you feel both yourself and others are worthless? That leads to the really bleak one, right? I'm not okay, you're not okay.
Yeah, this is the position of deep pessimism futility. The person is convinced that nobody, including themselves, is really worthy or capable. There's often this underlying despair. They see the world as basically hopeless. Their life script, as TA calls it, often leads towards withdrawal, maybe significant failure. Like, why bother? Nothing good can happen anyway.
And then finally, the goal, the place TA wants you to get to. I'm okay.
Yes. This is the only position Harris calls a winner position. And he stressed something really crucial here. This is not an emotion. It's not about feeling okay all the time. You don't wait for the feeling. It's a conscious, cognitive decision made by a functioning adult state based on, and I'm quoting here, thought, faith, and personal commitment to action. It demands using your intellect, your adult, to choose to validate yourself and others, regardless of what those old child tapes are screaming.
That point that it's a commitment, a decision, not just a feeling that seems incredibly important for anyone listening. It means change isn't about waiting for some magic emotional shift, but about rational reassessment.
Exactly. And it's worth stressing, based on the sources, TA's belief is that we all actually start life okay, intrinsically worthy. The not okay status gets imposed on us later through conditional love, critical messages, all that parent stuff we recorded. So the work is really about peeling back those layers that the world put there, getting back to that original state, but consciously this time.
Okay, now it really clicks how these fixed life positions fuel those dynamic interactions Bernal called games. Let's go back to that famous example you mentioned, the anatomy of a game.
Right, Bernays' analysis is just so sharp for understanding why some interactions feel so draining or pointless. The classic game he described is, why don't you, yes, but.
Hmm.
We've all met this person, right? Or maybe been them sometimes. The player starts by complaining about a problem. Let's say they hate their job, and they seem to invite suggestions.
Okay, so I might say, well, why don't you talk to your boss about changing your role?
And the player replies, yes, but my boss never listens to anyone. So you try again. Okay, why don't you start looking for a new job then?
And they say, yes, but the job market is terrible right now, and I don't have time to search.
Bingo. You see the pattern. The real point, the hidden motive, isn't actually to find a solution. The unconscious payoff, the win in the game, is to demonstrate that no one can give them a workable suggestion. They use the whole interaction to subtly prove their underlying belief, often rooted in that I'm not okay child tape, that their situation is uniquely impossible, that they can't be held.
Wow, that's really insightful. It shows exactly how that early life position, that feeling of maybe futility or being flawed, dictates the whole social game. And these positions, these games, they eventually build up into what TA calls our life script, right? Our whole life plan, almost.
Exactly. The life script is like this predetermined path for our life, largely written unconsciously in childhood.
Yeah.
And the sources tend to categorize scripts into three main outcomes, all stemming from that early decision made by the child about okayness.
Okay, first one, the winner script.
Right. The winner, according to TA, is someone who sets their own goals, reaches them, and this is the crucial part, finds genuine cheerfulness, joy, and peace in achieving them. Think of someone who decides they want to build a successful business, does it, and actually feels content, relaxed, happy with that success. Their inner committee is working together.
Then there's the flip side, the loser script.
Yeah. The loser script plays out in a couple of ways. Either the person fails completely to reach their stated goal, or, maybe more tragically, they do reach the goal, they get the money, the status, the family, but they find zero satisfaction in it. They feel empty, stressed, unhappy. Why? Because that underlying child tape is still running, still telling them they're fundamentally not okay no matter what they achieve externally.
And the third one, which sounds maybe the most common, the non-winner or trivial script.
Yeah, the non-winner. This is the person who plays it safe. They take the middle path, the marginal route. They never achieve anything really significant, but they also cleverly manage to avoid any major disasters or failures. They prioritize safety, predictability over fulfillment or big risks. They might retire after a steady but unexciting career thinking, I could have been CEO if only things had been different, if I'd gotten that break. Their life is defined more by what they didn't risk than what they actually accomplished.
Okay. So if we're listening to this and we recognize ourselves in maybe a non-winner or even a loser script, and we realize it might be based on decisions made by like a 7-year-old version of ourselves, how does Harris say we get free? How do we move towards that I'm okay, you're okay decision? What's the actual path to change here?
It really all comes back to strengthening and empowering the adult ego state. That's the key. The absolute core requirement for change is getting your adult, your rational, reality-testing self to consciously review those old parent messages and those early child conclusions. The adult has to step in and ask, okay, wait, is this rule actually true now? Does this feeling really reflect current reality? All right. It needs to validate what's still useful and invalidate what's outdated or just plain wrong. Only when the adult is functioning clearly, unclouded by those powerful old recordings, can a person shift from running an automatic inherited script to making free choices based on present reality and conscious commitment. The adult is the source of agency.
So this whole framework, TA, it gives you, the listener, this really powerful diagnostic tool. It's a way to kind of examine the script that might have been written for you in your early years, and then, crucially, use your adult, your rational mind to consciously start rewriting the ending.
Exactly. And achieving that I'm okay, you're okay status, it isn't about chasing some fleeting feeling of happiness. It's about a fundamental structural internal shift. And that takes intellectual work, it takes patience, it takes faith, really. Because overriding those deep-seated, powerful emotional recordings, the ones that have been running your internal software for decades, that's hard work. It's a decision you have to keep making, keep renewing.
And let's circle back to where we started, to the sheer ambition in the source material. Harris genuinely claimed that if enough individuals could reach this "I'm okay, you're okay" position, it could literally change the course of the world. Now, given that reaching this is rooted in a conscious, rational decision by the adult, not just feelings or getting approval from others, it leaves us with a pretty interesting question for you to think about. If real freedom, real agency, is found in the adult's power to assess objective reality, what then is the true, legitimate value of your oldest pre-adult emotional records? Your primal fears, your childhood shame, maybe your instinctual joys. How much weight should those carry when you're trying to navigate the complexities of the world today?
Hmm. Definitely something to mull over next time you hear that inner committee starting up a debate.